It was my first DSA adventure and I was pretty excited. I played a married elf who was very loyal to his wife, so it was clear that I don't want to do things that would be considered cheating. You can probably guess what will happen. At the start of everything, it was all fine. We had some nice sessions. Sometimes we had encounters where a player ended up in a bed with an NPC, but it was always okay with the player. In session 1, we arrived at a fun fair. Somehow, our group got separated. My character found a group of beautiful women who invited my character into a tent. Of course, I wanted to decline this invitation because my character had a wife, but the DM said that my character just couldn't resist the invitation because these women were just too good looking. In the end, we skipped the roleplay for the night, but my character woke up with all of his things gone, including his clothes. I couldn't do anything against that, and my DM told me later that he did this on purpose because my character had never slept with an NPC. Hey man, I'm really glad you decided to ask me for help. Prepping your first D&D campaign is not easy, so you ready to start?
Yes, your help is most appreciated.
Okay, so I just want to know what you have so far and what your focus is right now. Are you focusing on NPCs, locations? Do you need general quest objectives? What are you thinking?
I was thinking the forced romantic subplot.
What? One of my players hasn't been sucked for the entire campaign, and I cannot. I don't think that's very... Once I force him into a romantic subplot, he will be forever seduced by my NPCs. There will be no escape for him. And then we shall have romance. Dude. Priorities. He was mostly a great DM, but moments like this happen a little too often. In the end, we talked about things, and he changed it so it wasn't forced anymore, at least in such content. Look, I don't care how great of a DM you are. If this happens ever, at all, in any way, I'm bailing as fast as possible. And that's not an asexual thing. I think that's just a logic thing. I've been playing D&D on and off for the last 6 years, participating in several campaigns. However, the first campaign I ever joined will forever hold the most interesting Dungeons & Dragons DMing story I have to tell. This first campaign was massive, not necessarily in terms of the story, but in the sheer number of players our DM had to manage. Our party alone consisted of 8 player characters. Because of this, I'll mostly generalize our party as a single collective, and our Dungeon Master as her own person. As you know, a party that large can get rather chaotic, especially when a good number of the players, including the DM, are playing D&D together for the first time. There's a lot for the DM to manage, with many players to keep satisfied with the ongoing story, etc. However, our party entirely consisted of my IRL friend group, all of whom were in high school, yay! And are naturally chaotic at heart. Our table, excluding myself and maybe 4 other quieter/respectful people in our party, were always talking over the DM, on their phones, getting into arguments over seemingly nothing, or just interrupting our Dungeon Master with unrelated comments during our sessions. Surprisingly, the DM handled this pretty well. This campaign was a homebrewed world created by the DM, and at the start of the campaign, our party received letters, each tailored to lure in a specific party member by a recurring NPC who was trying to get us all to meet each other and essentially do his bidding. The interesting thing about this NPC was that he seemingly knew everything about our party, dropping several slightly obvious hints to this when we first arrived at his estate. This information becomes important later. Our party was then tasked with a reward to deliver a package to a portal between our realm and the Feywilds. This task turned into a 10 to 12 session mini adventure that allowed our party to level up and gain a few new, very interesting items. This included my character, Tiefling Bard, whom our DM has shifted the focus to for our next story arc during the time of this incident. Upon returning to the NPC's estate to retrieve our reward, the character pulled the NPC aside to ask a couple questions about the item she retrieved during her adventure. This item, as explained by the NPC, was a green stone enchanted with a truth spell, meaning that whoever holds the stone has to tell the truth. The NPC continued to explain that the stone was activated by a word. Nobody knew the word other than the creator of the stone, and it could be activated at any time if the word is said because of that. Fortunately, there was a drawback to this, and there was a small time limit of about 5 minutes before the spell ran out. During this conversation between my character and NPC, a good portion of our party walked into the room and started talking to the NPC too. All of these conversations were happening. Someone eventually, without knowing, said the word to activate the stone.
Fools! You cannot kill me. And why is that? You need to pay for ruining my coat!
Yeah, and for your treachery, whatever. Give it up, man. We have your tarot deck of truth. With it, any power you could offer us will be mute.
Fools! My enchanted tarot deck is protected by a secret password that only I know. You cannot kill me, else the knowledge within will be lost forever. You will never unlock its secrets!
Hey, stupid, did you leave it unlocked?
No, I remember to lock it. The password was the word, secrets.
Your secret password was the word secret.
Can you just kill me now?
Yeah, sure, why not? Our dungeon master suddenly got the most dreadful, horrified look on her face as she realized what was about to happen. Those of us who knew what this meant, due to the conversation that just happened, immediately understood what was going on, and most of the people in our party went wild. You remember how I said earlier that this NPC knows everything about our characters? Our party remembered that vividly and started berating the NPC/our DM with questions about future plot points involving character backstory information about the NPC he chose to keep hidden for plot reasons, and just general questions about literally anything they could think of that they knew he could answer. Or, hey, just hear me out, DM. If this is a really plot-breaking element and you can't improv around it, you could just change the word. Or alternatively, you could go back in time and tell your younger self to do a made-up word instead. Something like... I mean, that's not coming up in average conversation. I remember being shocked and silent in this, as did a few other members of the party. About 3 to 4 other people of our group had respect for our DM. Our DM at this point was in tears because she felt forced to... Just change the word! Just change the word! There are solutions here! She felt forced to answer most, if not all, the questions thrown at her. After what felt like forever, the 5-minute timer ran out, and the DM just sat there, silently in tears in her seat. Myself and those in the party who either didn't or refused to ask questions during that timer tried to comfort our now distraught DM. We suggested making our characters forget what just happened, maybe just, retconning, etc., but she felt defeated as the DM revealed information that she couldn't really change or retcon at this point. After about 5 minutes of attempted comfort, our DM called the session there and sent us all home. We ended up discussing the matter further at our lunch break the next day, and she seemed in somewhat higher spirits afterwards. To my knowledge, those who ended up asking her questions and not realizing it was upsetting her did apologize. Things got smoothed out, even if my DM had some hidden grudges towards certain players afterwards. Honestly, bless her heart, I don't blame her. In-game problems, out-game solutions, whatever, okay.
I'm starting to think people don't really listen to my stories.
The campaign ended up lasting another 6 months or so. During that time, we all seemed to move past the incident after that, either attempting to wipe it from our memories or just pretending it never happened. It turns out, according to our DM, the item was specifically meant for another NPC that my character was involved with. Whoa. What was that? Anyway, another NPC my character was involved with to reveal specific information to move the plot forward, not even a session or two after the incident. Of course, because of what happened, this ended up changing. Thankfully, this is a story that those involved can look back on and laugh at, though I still feel slightly guilty for my involvement in it all these years later. Though in reflection, I feel as if there could have been prevention on our DM's end to not have let this happen. Validation. But yeah, that's just another odd story in the book of DM and player mess-ups. Yeah, I know, I made fun of the DM a little bit, but at the end of the day, look, she's in high school, these people are in high school, and when you're in high school, you're not always thinking things through all the way. As a DM now, in my 20s, sometimes I think, oh, this is a great idea. Then 5 seconds later, I realize, whoa, that was a bad idea. And it really freaks me out. A big reason why I stopped doing actual plays was because of this. At least when I'm at home, it's not a big deal if I make a dumb decision at a D&D game, but live in front of tons of people, not so much. I get how being a DM could possibly drive you to tears, especially if you're a high schooler and stressed about, a ton of other stuff that I thankfully don't remember. Though I will say, even though I think the DM could have done more to avoid the situation in the first place, the rest of the players continuing to push her when she was visibly distraught, yeah, that's not great. But hey, at least people apologize, at least everyone moved on, and at least I think these people can continue to play the game and have fun, even if it's not together. I'm in graduate school, and our graduating class is super small. There's only around 20 of us, and all of us grew really close. By the time a second year rolled around, we decided to start a Dungeons & Dragons group, as a few of us had played it a lot, played a few one-shots, and explored similar interests like going to Ren fairs together. This would be a good time to introduce our characters. The Dungeon Master, myself as the Bard, my friend the Ranger, my classmate who I like but wasn't particularly close to, Sorcerer, Sorcerer's boyfriend Rogue, and another girl a year below us, the Tiefling. She'll be introduced later. I think she was a warlock, but I genuinely just don't remember. We didn't get a lot of responses in the group chat on the day of the first session, despite a lot of traction, but we were not deterred. Sorcerer came to pick me up, and we drove to the Dungeon Master's house. When we got there, Sorcerer was already present. Sorcerer explained that her boyfriend wouldn't be joining us today, but that he may join in on sessions occasionally. We all liked Rogue. He DM'd our one-shots, and we were okay with this, and decided to play even though we had a small group. It was our Dungeon Master's first time DMing after all, so we thought it would be easier for him to have a smaller group anyways. Our first session was pretty good. We had a few scuffles, but I chalked those up to in-character disagreements. My character was rich and spoiled, but very nice and a pacifist, while Sorcerer was very brash and aggressive. It peeved me a bit when Sorcerer loudly declared, upon us being given our quest, that she'd only be joining us to pursue her own mission of finding her brother's killer. But whatever, that's motive. I wasn't going to complain. It's worth mentioning that the setting here was a dystopian 1960s-inspired setting in a fictional country and based heavily on US history. Weird setting for D&D, but the 60s do have some of my favorite tunes.
Hey, this isn't... Ow! God, what's that ringing? You again? Hello? Copyright. On 60s music? Fine.
So, in-game, we start walking down a rougher area of town to get to a lore location. We pass by some NPCs who seem annoyed and give us a threatening look, but they don't say anything to us. This place reminds me of my IRL hometown, and I feel really bad for the NPCs here. Sorcerer stops and decides to pick a fight with them. Ranger and I both tell her to let it go, but she insists that they were threatening her. They get really close to actually hurting us, and I use my character's high charisma, paired with a great roll, to schmooze them and convince them to let us pass without any issues. They agree, and we're about to leave, but Sorcerer isn't happy yet. She successfully rolls to intimidate them, and basically rob them for the one single gold coin that they have. Which, okay, this bothered me out of character, because the idea of robbing someone with nothing, who clearly needs to eat, is just so fundamentally wrong, but I can separate in-game from real life.
Please, sir. My family were killed by ballists, and my home was burned down. I have nothing left. I'm sorry you have to go through this, friend. Please, take these coins. It'll be enough to buy you some shelter. We'll even find you a place. Come on. I will never forget this. Oh! Alright, fool. Give me all your money. I want to see some coin. Wait, oh my god. Okay. What are you doing? This guy doesn't have any money other than what I just gave them. What am I doing? What are you doing? We need every coin we can get. Oh, we got a runner. Wait, please, no! We need him to run.
Stop! You violated the law.
You think you're stopping me? Eat the pigs! What the fuck?
Okay, whatever. We had a few more issues like this with Sorcerer sort of taking over the game, but hey, I like her, and she's really fun to play with, so whatever, we'll figure it out as we go. Session 2 comes around, and Rogue joins in for this one. Session 2 comes around, and Rogue joins us for this one. We stop by a store to restock before our party moves forward, and Sorcerer gets distracted by a pretty sword in the store. She insists we need it. I won't go into detail, but in short, we make no progress in the session because we spent 4 hours getting sidetracked into getting this sword, which wasn't plot relevant at all. We still had a lot of fun because Rogue is an experienced player, and he makes the sidetrack fun too. Myself and Ranger are fine with it because while yes, the Dungeon Master should have kept us on track, he's new DMing, and we think that since Rogue is a temporary character otherwise, it's fine to get sidetracked. It's worth noting that during the session, Sorcerer, encouraged by Rogue, steals from an impoverished town, taking all of their money, all the food from their annual feast, even down to their personal sentimental items and buttons. The Dungeon Master made this really dramatic and sad. Now, by this point in real life, we've met the class below us and gotten close to them too. Again, it's just 2 years, so our entire program has less than 50 people, so we're all friends. One person from the new class, Tiefling, tells me that she's interested in Dungeons & Dragons, and I put in a contact with the Dungeon Master, who enthusiastically says he'd love for her to join. I'm also a newbie to D&D, but I've used online character creators before, and my best friend, not really relevant here, is a great D&D player, so I offer to help Tiefling make her character. We hop on a Zoom call, and we have a great time making her character and coming up with her backstory, making sure it doesn't overlap with anyone else's, and that she's got a balanced skill set based on her interests and the story she wants to tell. We send the character to Dungeon Master for the approval, and he loves it. He tells her it's a great fit, and we're all excited. Session 3 is not long after, and as we're waiting, Sorcerer asks what Tiefling's character is. Tiefling tells her, and Sorcerer is clearly pissed off. She turns to look at us and makes a comment about how I shouldn't have let Tiefling be a Tiefling since it'll make our mission harder. There's a lot of quote-unquote racism in our setting for anyone except elves and humans. I tell her that the Dungeon Master approved it, and that it'll add to our story since Sorcerer, Ranger, and I had accidentally all made ourselves half-elves. She tells me that I should have forced Tiefling to be a healer, since we don't have one. I'm annoyed now because both Ranger and I have healing spells, and our game isn't combat heavy anyway, so I don't really know why any of this matters, but I don't fight it. Because again, I really like Sorcerer out of game, and I think she must be, joking. Getting yelled at and lectured is joking.
What kind of chub-buffling relationships you been in? That don't make any sense.
Agreed.
See? I don't think you have a good, healthy definition of joking. We bumble around for a bit, struggling since Tiefling is still new and is struggling to figure out how to become part of our party. Despite my character trying to befriend her, she keeps rejecting my character's attempts to be friends and ends up awkwardly tagging along behind us. Sorcerer and Ranger don't attempt to add her into the party either. We do our typical session beats, and then we get into this vault, which is locked, but we hear voices inside. We're scared it might have a monster inside, but we decide that we have to break it open in case people are stuck. After some lucky rolls, we get it open, and we find a man inside. The lore tells us that he's been in there for years, trying to escape a pandemic that wiped out the town outside. This guy is clearly also sick and disfigured, but not in any pain. The Dungeon Master tells us that he isn't contagious, so we go inside to meet his wife, who is more than sick with him. Oh, wait. No, who is more sick than him. Sorry. And needs to be restrained. But this looks fairly docile and calm. She also doesn't look like she's in any pain. We talk to the guy, and he explains that he's happy to live out the rest of his life down here with his wife. He's happy and she's happy, and it's better than being out in the real world. He's probably gonna die soon anyways. He offers us some med kits and supplies and all of his money since he doesn't really need them. My character thanks them and sings to them, and I'm ready to leave. Sorcerer stops my character, pulls us all aside, and tells us that we should kill the guy and his wife. Ranger and I are horrified. Tiefling, whose character is kind of the archetypal evil character, is down for this. My character says absolutely not. These people seem fine and happy. You should just go. Sorcerer keeps trying to convince us. We keep on saying no. Sorcerer overrules us and literally firebolts the guy and his wife. Ranger and I roll to stop her and grab her. We successfully roll. The Dungeon Master is about to say that she can't even cast the firebolt, but Sorcerer asks where we grab her. Ranger and I agree that we grab her one leg each, and we're hauling her away. She argues that she's using firebolt with her hand, so it should still hit. The Dungeon Master agrees, and both the guy and his wife die. Wait. Yeah, single tuck. Yeah, one of them should be fine. I mean, they'll be traumatized forever, but still fine. Also, Firebolt has a space. My character is at this point absolutely horrified because she's sensitive and hasn't seen death before. Admittedly, okay, yeah, I'm also horrified. I have friends that are disabled and work at an organization providing housing to disabled people. So Sorcerer's explanation that he's better off dead than the way he's living, even though he was happy and perfectly fine, left a horrible taste in my mouth. My character sings an emotional song to grieve their death, and we wrap up the session. The Dungeon Master seems to realize he messed up by letting Sorcerer just kill them, and asks us if there's anything he can do to be a better Dungeon Master. We tell him, just to make things less sad. He agrees, and apologizes. It's been a few months now since we've played. Honestly, I feel worse for Tiefling since she played one session. During most of it, she was blinded and still figuring out what's going on. The Dungeon Master is organizing another session soon, but I'm not sure if I want to play with the group again. I'm not sure how to tell him, because again, I really do love all these people outside the game, even Sorcerer. She's a very smart, very nice person, just a horrible person to play with if you're someone who's sensitive to this stuff like me. And it has made me a little uncomfortable in real life because now I wonder whether she really does see real disabled people like that. Like, it's better to be dead than disabled. It really does boil down to just horrible communication, though. The Dungeon Master is a new DM, but he should have kept things under control. And we should have had Session 0, and I should have been more vocal about what made me uncomfortable. And now I wonder if we're ever going to finish this plotline. Oh well, we live and learn. I graduate soon, and I'll likely be moving, and I really hope I can get the confidence to join a new D&D group in my new location, but I guess we'll see. My nerves are definitely on fire when it comes to Dungeons & Dragons now, even though I do love role-playing and dressing up in character and doing my makeup and the voice acting and everything. Maybe I'll even get to reuse my character again, because I do love her backstory, which I never got to explore. Let me know whether you use this in the video. I love your channel, and as a side note, it's been really fun to see you wearing lipstick. Thank you. I don't know Sorcerer, but yeah, what they said was not ideal, certainly. Look, on my end, there is a recording of a game that me and my friends played over Discord where we drew certain things based on prompts. And look, that recording will never ever see the light of day, ever, because the things we said during that hour-long session probably were not appropriate for YouTube. Look, what I'm trying to say is that sometimes when you're with your friends, you say some stuff. Though I will also say that neither me nor any of my friends have said anything like that, certainly. Though, who knows what Sorcerer was thinking. If it really makes you uncomfortable, you can talk to them about it. And if they're not willing to walk that statement back, I think it's reasonable for you to put some distance between yourself and that person. As for the game, I think the DM will understand if you tell them that you're just not feeling it anymore. And you know what? I think that's justified. It's clearly not fun for you, and you shouldn't waste your time on something that you're not going to enjoy with a group that sometimes makes you uncomfortable. I don't know the exact words you should use with your Dungeon Master since I don't know them, but trust me, put some thought into it, and I think the words will come to you. Here's a short one, semi-mild, maybe. You may want to have something to treat headaches on standby. As a courtesy, Crispy, since you're ace, I'll not mention the rhyming term the problem player used to describe their character prior to session. I wouldn't want... Oh god, you guys have turned that into a running joke, haven't you? Those involved my druid Anna, the artificer, who we'll call Mo, the warrior, we'll call him Pavel, and a drunk rogue, we'll call him Tipsy. We play on Foundry plus Discord. The civilized choice. A player had recently dropped, so Tipsy was going to join us to fill the spot. The session picked up with Mo, Pavel, and I at a farm, where we had just killed several giant spiders and an ettercap. Mo, in character, is slightly arachnophobic, so there is a little roleplay banner between him and my druid sorting out what we had just killed. Giant spiders, Anna is familiar with them. The ettercap, on the other hand, I have never seen, but it smells just as bad when dead as it did alive. So we scavenge what we can find, just some coin from the farmers that got eaten, and head back to town to sleep, opting to collect the reward in the morning. So the artificer, myself, and the warrior are coming back from wiping out a bunch of giant spiders at a mill. We're walking up to the inn, a bit rough and covered in spider ichor. The Dungeon Master asks us to roll for perception. Mo rolls low, I roll low, Pavel rolls mid-high. The Dungeon Master says that Pavel, you just catch a glance of movement in the bushes. Tipsy says, a busty drow woman stealthily steps out of the bushes behind Pavel and puts a gleaming... oh dear. She whispers in his ear, don't make any sudden moves, and she presses the dagger harder. What am I reading?
This is porn. This is porn. This is porn.
Mo just responds with, Let me pause for a second and fill in some information. Tipsy is an Edgelord, Path of Self-Destruction subclass rather than I studied the blade subclass. As you might have figured out, he's low 20s going by their drinking habit and how they write posts. My druid is 10 years older than the other party members. I am 10 to 15 years older than the other party members as a player. I am a middle-aged woman who not long ago had to navigate my stepsons and their edgy teen phase. So my response to the scene was a heavy amount of momentary character bleed. I just say, with the exhausted tone of a mom that just found their toddler making sandcastles in flour spilled on the kitchen floor, Anna looks at the drow woman for a long moment, lets out a sigh and says, it's late. I need a bath, and at least a nap. Scream if she stabs you. And she just went right on, shuffling tiredly past Mo, right past the hostage situation, and straight on into the inn. I don't recall what dialogue transpired after that, other than something along the lines of, this is what my character does / would do. Honestly, my brain half checked out for a moment as I finished my aspirin stash from the desk drawer and slugged some down with a heavy swig of water. The rest of the session was less interesting, with only some minor edginess. I even tried role-playing with Tipsy to get a feel if they'd mellowed out at all, my druid, a tiefling, commiserating that the daylight hurt her eyes as well. I don't know if Tipsy was just not into it, or if they'd gone from drunk to just full-on bored drunk, but the exchanges were pretty one-sided. Thankfully, the Dungeon Master told Tipsy they were not a good fit after one of the others and I both spoke to them about their behavior. I don't claim to have a moral high ground as far as unsettling character actions. My druid had a quirk of gnawing on corpses post-combat if she failed an intelligence roll before shifting back, but borderline graping with a dagger was really stepping on the line where my hackles started raising. From my other interaction with Tipsy on the Discord server, I have a strong sense of deja vu and a gut feeling about what they might be dealing with. I won't elaborate, I don't have a PhD or certification or authority. I honestly just hope they figure out what they need to do and get help. At least before they hit and crash and burn rather than after, like I did in my 20s. A sweet sentiment to have. Yeah, this person doesn't seem to be acting in all the best ways. And look, it's great to feel empathy for people who are going through it, but frankly, it is not your responsibility to help someone through their behaviors unless you're their therapist. I'm not saying you shouldn't help others. If you can help, if you want to help, if your help is accepted and helpful, great. But those circumstances don't always line up, and sometimes these things are just out of your hands. Sometimes giving help is going to end up hurting you. Sometimes your help just isn't what they need. Sometimes the best thing you can do is just move in the other direction, like what you guys did here. Tipsy's behavior was the opposite of appropriate. Doesn't matter whether they're drunk or not. Frankly, if you're going to pick up the bottle, you should at least be able to hold it down, and they clearly weren't able to, and their behavior reflected that, with a little side hint of some other really not great tendencies. Again, I wish them the best, but I'm certainly not going to be playing with them anytime soon. Alright, and that's a wrap. If you guys enjoyed them, please do leave a like. If you want to see more of our content, then you can check out our Tabletop Tavern Tips series, where we give D&D advice for both DMs and players, old and new. It's linked in the cards. And while you're there, subscribe to Crispy Tavern to get more of our content as it comes out. And finally, if you want to leave your own stories or thoughts, go down in the comments down below. If you can't think of a comment, leave the comment a bit too edgy to let me know you made it to the end of the video. Hey, by the way, if you have your own horror stories, you can send them directly to me. There is an email in the description below. Send them that way for a chance to be featured in one of these videos. But hey, even if you don't have any stories, in essence, like, comment, subscribe. I will see you all next time. Farewell.